And I'm Dylan Black. The new book is called The Down Goes Brown. It's a history of the NHL. And the author joins us right now. His name is Sean McIndoe. And hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to have you here. Now, you are called The Down Goes Brown.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what's the history behind that name?
Down Goes Brown. It's 1992. The Leafs are playing the Blackhawks at Maple Leaf Gardens, and as often happened back then when you had a North Division matchup, you get a little tussle breakout at center ice, and it was Sylvain Lefebvre and Rob Brown, and it did not go especially well for Rob Brown, and Sylvain Lefebvre and the Maple Leafs won the fight. And us being Maple Leaf fans in 1992, we didn't have a lot going on, so we kind of took our victories where we could get them, and that ended up being a famous radio call from Joe Bowen yelling, "Down goes Brown." And
I
it
see.
just kind of stuck with us.
Very cool. All right. Yeah, I do recall those early days, the 1990s. You've got just about every day of the NHL stuffed into this book.
Literally going back to day one and even before, even the lead up into where this league came from, and the sort of very strange days led up to it, because I think a lot of people think of the history of the NHL and they think, well, it's the original six and that's the starting point. But there were 25 years before that leading into it where, I mean, you had a league where quite literally the league began because there was another league and there was an owner that nobody liked and they wanted to get rid of him and he wouldn't leave. So they just started a different league with the same teams except without that guy, and figured he'd go away and they could go back to their old league. And instead, that's what became the NHL, because this guy just wouldn't go away and leave him alone. That's why we've got the league we've got today.
Interesting. Okay, so how much research went into this?
I mean, there was a fair amount, and certainly there's been a ton of work done on the NHL and its history, and with the 100-year anniversary just recently, there was a lot of work already done that I could sort of build off. But yeah, a lot of time spent going through old newspapers and combing through some of those classic old sports columns and really getting a feel for not just what was happening, but the way it was perceived and described back then.
All kinds of neat stories in here, but with the recent news today, let's talk about the Ottawa Senators. Of course, as they have released their head coach. Been a crazy week as well as far as trades have been concerned over the past week or so. What are your thoughts on all of this?
I mean, it's like you say, a crazy week. I mean, most teams in the NHL, if they fire a coach, that is the big headline news for weeks. And you could make a case that this was only the third or fourth most important thing that happened to the Ottawa Senators this week, between the trades, between the arena. Clearly this is a very difficult time. They are transitioning. They are going into a rebuild. They've been very forward with that. I think all of us expected that a coaching change was coming. We were a little bit surprised to see it happen right now, especially given that Pierre Dorion had said he was going to wait till the end of the year. But it's clear that this is very much a time of transition, and they've pulled the trigger on doing the things you need to do as far as trading the veterans, as far as bringing in the prospects. Now they have to execute on the next phase, and I think that's the part where a lot of people are scratching their heads wondering if they're going to pull it off the way they say they will.
With the history of the NHL being as it has been, and your research, have you ever seen chaotic situations like this before?
Absolutely. I mean, it's rare to see something like this in what I would consider the modern NHL. Gary Bettman has come in, and whatever you think of Gary Bettman, he has cleaned the place up. He has classed it up a bit. There were times, I mean, I grew up as a Maple Leafs fan in the Harold Ballard era, and I mean, Eugene Melnyk, for all his flaws, could not hold a candle to Harold Ballard as far as some of the crazy stuff that was going on back then. And certainly, if you go back even further, there are all sorts of stories in the book and throughout history where what we're seeing today would pale in comparison. But certainly, in the modern 2019 version of the NHL, stuff like this is not supposed to still be happening, and it's curious that it's happening here of all places.
How long do you think it'll take for them to actually rebound and rebuild?
Well, I mean, we're told, according to Eugene Melnyk, it's 2 more years, and then we've got 5 years of unparalleled success coming up. So,
oh my goodness! Well, that's something to wait for then.
Well, I mean, the record for Stanley Cups in a 5-year period is 5. So if you're going to be unparalleled, apparently they're going to win 6 or 7 or something like that.
All right.
So if you buy into what Eugene Melnyk is selling, you've got a couple more years, and then it's going to be great. And if you don't, then you might be a little more hesitant to go forward.
Tell us about some of the other fun stories. Pick a story or two that you'd like to share with us.
One of my favorite ones is it's the Earmuffs story. So it's 1969, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are going into St. Louis to play the Blues, and both of them are recent expansion teams, but St. Louis is already established as being a very good team and a very tough place to play. And so the Pittsburgh Penguins head coach, Red Kelly, decides that he's got a plan. He's figured out how he's going to combat these loud fans, and that is that he's going to have his team wear earmuffs during the game. And when I say earmuffs, I don't mean that's not slang. That's not a piece of equipment. Big, fuzzy, fluffy earmuffs, and he had them wear them on the bench so they couldn't hear the fans. And they couldn't, and it worked, but they also couldn't hear each other, hear the referees, hear their coaches. They were down 5-0 after the first period, and that was
That's
it for the
incredible.
Earmuff experiment.
You also write for The Athletic. Tell us about The Athletic.
Yeah, The Athletic, it's a relatively new site, a couple years old now, and it's sort of changing the model of sports writing online because it's a subscription service, no ads, no clickbait, no gimmicks, just really good sports writing. They've got a lot of the big names, and for a couple of bucks a month, you get access to all of that. They have a great app, and I had been a subscriber for a couple of years and really enjoyed the work they were doing. So when the opportunity came to jump on board, it was a pretty easy call.
Yeah, they have all the big names, including yourself.
Exactly.
Sean McIndoe.
Yeah.
Where can you get the book?
You should be able to find it anywhere you get books, certainly online, and most of the bookstores should have it there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome new book. Thank you very much, Sean, for being here today. There you go. More daytime coming up.